Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are getting towards the end of the Comedy of Errors. We're in Act 5, and there's only one scene in this act, so if you want to call it Act 5, Scene 1, you can, but you don't have to. And today we get to hear from an abbess. An abbess being a woman who lives in an abbey, so essentially a nun, but she's like of some esteem within the abbey. And the reason why we get to talk to an abbess and why an abbey is involved in all of this is the mix-up between the Antipholuses. Antipholus of Ephesius and Dromio of Ephesius were bound up to be taken off to the insane asylum by Luciana and Adriana because of all the mistaken identity stuff that nobody's quite aware of yet. But then Adriana and Luciana saw Antipholus and Dromio of Syracuse with their swords drawn because they'd been spooked by the courtesan. And were like, oh my God, they're out. We got to chase them. So those two had gone running off through the city, and that was sort of the end of Act 4. But then at the beginning of Act 5, we check in with Angelo, who's the guy who made the necklace, and he's talking to this other merchant to whom he owes money. And he's like, no, I just got to get the money from Antipholus. But he said that he didn't have the chain, but blah, 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 and here he comes wearing the chain and all that sort of thing. So Angelo kind of got in Antipholus of Syracuse's face yesterday because it was Antipholus of Syracuse and Dromio of Syracuse who were approaching with Antipholus of Syracuse wearing the necklace. And he's like, why did you say that you didn't have it and you still owe me money for this and all that sort of thing? And Antipholus is like, I never denied it. Are you calling me a liar? And there's enough back and forth that they draw their swords as if they're going to fight. And right as they've drawn their swords, Adriana and Luciana and the courtesan and a bunch of other people enter. So they are still like, oh my God, they're still free. Like, there they are. Tie them up, tie them up. Antipholus and Dromio of Syracuse are like, nope, that's not going to happen. And they run and they hide to seek sanctuary in this abbey. So the whole rest of the train follows along to the abbey, and they are greeted by this abbess at the door, and Adriana's like, my husband just ran in there, can you bring him back out? And the abbess is like, but, why? And she's like, well, he's gone mad. And the abbess is like, well, how long has he been feeling this way? And Adriana's like, well, for a little while things have been weird, but really it's just today that stuff got really weird. And the abbess is like, well, you should have tried harder to get him to talk to you. And Adriana's like, I did. While we were eating, while we were sleeping, I followed him out with his friends to try to find out what was wrong with him. And the abbess replies, and thereof came it that the man was mad. The venom clamors of a jealous woman, poisons more deadly than a mad dog's tooth. It seems his sleeps were hindered by thy railing, and thereof comes it that his head is light. Thou sayest his meat was sauced with thy upbraidings. Unquiet meals make ill digestions. Thereof the raging fire of fever bred, and what's a fever but a fit of madness? Thou sayest his sports were hindered by thy brawls. Sweet recreation barred, what doth ensue but moody and dull melancholy, kinsman to grim and comfortless despair, and at her heels a huge infectious troop of pale distemperatures and foes to life. In food, in sport, and life-preserving rest to be disturbed, would mad or man or beast. The consequence is then, thy jealous fits hath scarred thy husband from the use of wits. So, what she's saying here is, you bothered him too much. You're the one that drove him crazy, Adriana, because you wouldn't let him rest, you wouldn't let him eat, and you wouldn't let him just have leisure time. You were always up in his face, and of course that's going to drive him crazy. That drives anybody crazy if they're just being harassed all the time. And Luciana's like, well, no, she exaggerated how much she harassed him. And it turns into this great big back and forth where Adriana's insistent, give me my husband, give me my husband. And the abbess is like, no, he came here for sanctuary, so I'm going to treat him. I'm going to let him get some rest, treat him with any medicines that he might need, whatever, and not until he is feeling like a whole person again will I bring him out to you. And Adriana is even like, send people in there to get him and bring him out. And the abbess is like, nope, not going to happen. And she leaves. So now there's this group of people on the street not knowing quite what to do, but they come up with a plan. Of course they do. But we'll get into that tomorrow. I'll see you then for that. Mwah.